Hello and welcome to round 8 of the 7th Uppsala Young Champions. And I'm once again joined by International Master Jesper Hall. Jesper, how are you today?
I'm fine, thank you.
So today is the last day of the tournament. They are ending on a double round, so everything will be decided today. And actually I just realized I am not sharing my screen yet with you, so that would make things a bit more difficult for you to follow everything blindfold. Let me see, can you see my screen now?
Not yet, but now I can.
Perfect. Great. So we are looking at the standings, and still Milton Panza is the sole leader on 6 out of 7. And he is followed by Stein van Dahl. I don't know if you saw, but yesterday he completed his opponent experiment. So he got in all of A4, H4, H3 and A3. It has served him quite well because he is in second place with 5.5.
Yes.
And behind that, 3 players on 5 points. Jung-Min Seo, Isaac Sturme and Felix Bloberger. So very likely the future tournament winner is going to be one of these 5 players. And so the pairings for today, well, the main pairings will be the top 3 boards where Jung-Min Seo is white against Milton Panzer. So that's a huge game, of course. Then on board 2, Isaac Sturme is playing against Stein van Dahl. And on board 3, Daniel Johnson, who's having a great tournament, is facing a tough task against the top seed, Felix Bloberger. One thing that is really interesting is yesterday in round 7, and that's simply incredible. In round 7, there was not a single draw. All 20 boards were ended decisively. And I mean, it's simply incredible. Maybe it can happen sometimes, in a round 1 where there's big rating disparities, but here with all the players so closely matched up, that is simply incredible. And the tournament organizer Carl told me yesterday, young players are just fantastic.
Yes, incredible.
It's simply incredible. So today, round 8, without much further ado, let's get to the games. So on board 1, Jung-Min against Milton. And I don't know, do you want to quickly play through the opening? It was a Caro-Kann. See how
Yeah, sure, if you like, we can do that quickly. That could be interesting. You could say that it is an interesting game because, Jung-Min has been one of the most promising players for a long time. For a couple of years now in Sweden, who's very rapidly has improved his strength. Really going into chess, but lately I can see that he's playing a lot of draws, and in this game he needs to win if he really wants to challenge Milton and to go for the first place. So it will be interesting to see if he can do that. Milton normally is a very solid player, so that is positionally very strong. And it will be interesting to see what opening Jung-Min will come up with and how to complicate things, because normally it is in this area when it comes to tactics that I think he has got a chance to outrule Milton. So I think that would be a strategy to go for a more dynamic position where his ability to calculate could be decisive.
Yeah, it's interesting. So he went for the exchange Caro-Kann, and actually this is something that I have played pretty much all my life, this C3, H3 line, with the main idea that you take away the 2 normal developing squares of the bishop. And Milton answered with, I think G6 is supposed to be the best setup here. Setup for black, but this move I'm not too familiar with, Queen C2, because usually what happens is after some castles the bishop does come to F5 and black does not care about getting these double pawns, but so this Queen C2 stopping.
It's interesting, but it's also a little bit strange to put the queen on C2, but the idea is obvious, to avoid the swap of the bishops.
Yeah.
And of course, always when you have these kind of positions, one key question is which pieces to keep and which one to swap off. And in this case, like you said, it's obvious that the best black bishop is the one on f8 in a way, as the bishop on c8 is the one that is on, the pawns on pawn on d5 and g6 is on the same color. So bishop f5 is, you can even live with this double pawn if you can swap off this bishop. So queen c2 is interesting, but also it looks a little bit strange. So the question is it worth it or not?
Yeah, so let's see what happened from here. The bishop went to g7, castles, and black went for knight h5. Yeah.
Interesting. Also, because what I think that normally in this type of position, now you're the expert on this opening, but from my point of view, White's idea is actually to force black to get a cramped position, where you can make use of that. You might have a more easier way to develop your pieces and possibly go for an attack on the black king in a couple of moves.
Yeah,
so the question is how black can be active in this type of position. It's not so easy to find out which is the best way. Sometimes black even goes for f6, e5 in these type of positions, just to try to grab the center. But that is, of course, a very dangerous approach to go for, as well as it can be very weak. So this will be interesting.
Yeah, and interestingly now, Jung Min decided to put the queen back to d1. So I guess now the idea is that bishop f5 is still not possible. I guess there must be some problems with this.
You simply take it and play knight to h4, I think, and then it's a double threat on h5 and on f5.
Yeah. So interesting approach here by White, actually, to play this queen c2, queen d1.
But it's also not so interesting anymore to play bishop to f5 when you have castle short side, I guess.
True.
Because then you will get a weak king if you have to take the g-pawn on f5. So, yeah.
That is true. So now black continues with rook e8. And after knight d2, the knight jumps to f4.
Yeah, the question in this type of position is if black should go for e5 or not. For example, with rook e8, of course it's covering up the pawn, but it's also preparing for e5 at some point. The problem with that is that you will get a weak pawn on d5, you get the isolated pawn, and it will be very much a transformation of the position. And so interesting. It's interesting for the players at this moment because they need to understand what type of structure they want to reach and which one to avoid, and not the least how to put your pieces to make them flexible enough to be ready for all types of possibilities.
Yeah. So both players are trying to position their pieces, and finally the bishop comes to f5. And I don't know what you think, but to me it almost feels like the opening was kind of a success for black.
I cannot say that black should have any problems in this position. The only thing right now that I can say is that the question is if the f4 knight has got problems or not. Because if that one has to go back to e6, for example, then you will have a strange setup of your pieces. So I think that the coming moves will decide if this maneuver with going with the knight to f4 was good or bad.
Yeah.
So I think that is the key. If it's if black can keep it on f4 or show that it's not so bad, black has got no problems at all. But I think that is the key to the position.
Yeah, I guess the question is there a good way to kick out the knight? Because playing g3 is going to be very difficult in the foreseeable future because of the weak point on h3, and you would like to defend it maybe in some lines with king h2, but that's never going to be an option.
But even if you play g3, at a moment, and you take on h3, no, maybe not in this moment, but then it can be a bit dangerous to take on h3 with a knight because it's stuck on h3. If it would be possible to play, for example, king to h2, then it might be an idea to go for that. So maybe he's heading towards that. I don't know, but that looks normal to play bishop to e3 and queen d2 and so on, I think.
Yeah, and now things start getting interesting as black gets in this g5 push and white counters with h4.
Yeah, this is, of course, g5 is normally not a move you want to play. With f6, black is showing his intentions to play e5, and if you also have to play g5, then this is really, this is something you normally wants to avoid. On the other hand, white's pieces are a bit strange placed right now, with a knight on b3 and so on, not doing much. But on the other hand, how should black continue? With e5, then it's a bit shaky, this center. And I think h4 was a good move, because not only does it undermine the g5, but also g3 now becomes really interesting to play.
Yep.
And then the knight on f4 will be in trouble.
Absolutely. So after h4, black defended the pawn with h6, and we had a swap of those h-pawns, followed up by c4.
Interesting.
And I can tell you, I actually cheated a little bit before we went live. I had a quick look through this position with the engine, but so quick that I could not really understand the engine's evaluation. Somewhere around here, the engine really liked white's position, but then the engine did not approve of c4 at all.
For me to take on g5 was a little bit of a surprise, but I guess he wanted to have his knight because normally you want to keep up the tension if you have this position, as you never g take h4 will never be the good move, but I guess you have to calculate with g4 at that point. But I would probably leave it. The question is, at this point, is how white should continue. For me, it's g3 that is the move it's the normal move. But on the other hand, that can be also dangerous sometimes if you play, I don't know. So it's, but that would be the normal move.
I guess the knight would go back to g6 now, or
maybe, or you have to play bishop to e4 or something like that. I don't know if that is possible. And it's a strange position, I can say. So, but of course, c4 is logical, because what whites want to do is to undermine e5, because now e5, then you take on d5 and play bishop c4, and it is it's pinned the rook on d5. So that is, of course, what the idea with the move. But on the other hand, you also loosen up your own structure, your nice structure with b2, c3, d4. So that is a tough move to play, I think,
Actually, and this is the last engine line. We don't use engines here, and it's the last. It's the last I saw anyway of this game. But I saw that the computer here was advocating for bishop e4.
Yes, that looks good. I agree.
And I guess now suddenly you are asking a lot of questions around the king side.
And maybe you have to play knight to h2. That's the only move. But this is this is a difficult position too. But with the bishop on e4, you have protected the d5 pawn, and that's good. On the other hand, knight c5 is on the way, so this is a difficult position. It's also difficult because, if you have played this position with white many times, you realize that this is not the normal setup and pawn structure. So they have left, the common ground where they know the plans and how to do. So now they are on their own, and they need to be flexible enough to find the right way forward. And I can assure you this is not easy, because maybe in every move you have to make judgments that are not normal to you.
Speaking of common ground and all that, Sean is with us in the chat, and I think he's a Caro-Kann player with the black pieces as well, and he's saying this is how the Caro-Kann is now. You just push your J and G and H pawns and hope for the best.
Hope for the best. Okay, maybe I'm getting old. That is absolutely possible, that I'm old-fashioned and I look at structures and these kind of stuff. But I guess with the new modern way of playing it, you leave this kind of ideas of structure and so on behind and go for this dynamic play that we see in this game.
Actually, Jesper, have you had a chance to see any of the Queen's Gambit on Netflix, or are you planning to?
Actually, I saw one just before this game started. I had to see number 3, so I'm on the third one.
Well, actually, is it not in number 3? Because I'm on number 4 now. Is it not in episode 3 that this guy Benny Watts is saying that the Caro-Kann is just pawns and nothing else?
Exactly, that's correct. I can foresee that we will have a lovely Caro-Kann game in the end of this TV show. Yeah, that's interesting.
Yes. So let's see. C4 Black decided to just defend the pawn with E6.
Yeah.
And the knight jumps to C5.
Mm-hmm.
It is kicked and it jumps into A6.
Yeah, actually, I was thinking about that. Does Black want, because normally you don't want to play B6 because now the knight will be hanging loose on C6 after take on D5 and Rook C1. So that's this again. Like I said, every move you have to judge: should I push the pawn or not? Or maybe you should follow the rule that we just heard. When you play the Caro-Kann, you have to push them every time you can. You know, maybe that's the rule to follow. But yeah, okay.
So let's see, knight A6, queen D6. Yes.
So now the question is, who has made the most compromise here? You know, the knight is strange on A6. On the other hand, now the C6 knight is a bit loose. So C5 came.
Yeah, it's a very, what's the word, not practical, but move by move sort of game. Like there doesn't seem to be too much, long-term planning involved at the moment.
And this was interesting. This is again was a very, because knight takes C5 is the normal move, to threatening, to get the knight back, but also to threaten the knight to B7, and then put the rook on C1. And also, actually, one move that is now very ready for white is to play bishop to B5, because as B6 is played, the knight on C6 is hanging loose.
Yeah.
So that can be a dangerous move as well, So right now it feels like white has got some pressure at least, because it's not so clear how black will continue in this position from my point of view at least, To
me, it's a very interesting and surprising decision to take with the D pawn. I mean, if this was a blitz game, I think I would take with the knight without...
But don't forget, you will win a pawn on F4, because in the next move, if you take with the pawn, then you can take on F4. So it loses its protector on with the queen, So just make this judgment. On the other hand, the center for black could be extremely powerful, but starts to be pushed after if you take with the bishop on F4 and so on. So queen D7, yeah.
He decided to take the pawn, so we're probably going to see that. And the pawns start rolling.
So it's a sacrifice of a pawn, and now the question is there compensation? Bishop B5 still hanging is in the air, but on the other hand, it is a bit strange placed knight on A6. It is an impressive pawn center, so interesting position.
Very interesting position, I guess. Well, as you said, bishop b5, so black already preempts that by playing rook c8. And
can you play? Is it who to play? Could you take back? Was it possible to play in the next move forward, please? Was it possible to play knight to d4 in this position for black?
So let's see, knight d4, and after queen d7, I guess your idea was to take on f3, or?
Exactly.
And then how do you recapture?
I need to take with the bishop, I guess.
Yeah, because otherwise
but maybe this type of ending is okay for white. Actually, now it's knight to c7 and take on d5. So so it was not possible then. But this is a very, a little bit of a tactical trick that sometimes might loosen up the position for black. But right now it seems like it was okay. So continue, please.
So rook c8, rook d1, and d4, and we have caught up with the game. So this is the live game right now. The live position.
And I think that bishop b5 is normal.
There it is. We just played.
threatening knight to b4. And yeah. It's actually quite dangerous threat.
Do we have to do something like queen b7 followed by bishop e7?
Maybe. But also in that position, if you swap off that stuff, because one thing that if you play knight to b, because can you take on can you take on b4 in this position?
Here.
Yeah. And if you take on e8, maybe you have bishop to c2. I don't know if that is strong or what is that like in queen? You have queen d7 maybe. This is tactical stuff. Very interesting. Well, this is I think this is simply winning for white. I think. But also, I mean, sometimes you can even play with if you take on d7 and then take on c5, even if if you're down with an exchange, it's still, the d pawn is very dangerous, knight d3 and so on. So this can be played sometimes,
Yeah, this is very interesting. I mean, how would you evaluate this position? How would you evaluate black's compensation?
Actually, I had a huge training camp yesterday with Boris Gelfand.
Oh.
And the topic was exchange sacrifices.
Mm-hmm.
And this looks like this type of position that we were looking at, extremely difficult. And it was with the top players of the Nordic countries, with Ariantari, Nils Glandelius, and so on. And we had to think a lot. And this seems to be this type of position. It is not easy to give a clear answer on this.
Yeah.
I just say this is really, really complicated. Yeah. And you need to evaluate it very carefully to understand which one is the best at this point. I
mean, even in this position, even if we look at this, like, what does white even do? I mean, the rook only really has, I think, 2 squares now, d2 and a1, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, this. You could maybe you can. a3. You play knight to d3. I think this looks good for black, actually. But it's best to not to be too tough.
Yeah, well, none of this, of course, was forced by any means, but for sure, an interesting line. But the question is, what else do you do as black? Because knight b4 is a threat.
Yeah.
Unless so knight b4 is a threat. So what do you do?
Yes, and to play e4 is not possible, I guess, because you can always take on d4, with the knight. So that's not possible. So yeah, this is. I think bishop, like you suggested, queen to b7 probably is the only move. But also here you have. I mean, I think white should sometimes even try to go for the king in this position, because knight h4 is also a bit annoying, and if you play, for example, bishop to d7, maybe even knight b4 first, actually, because now if you give a check on c4 with an
you mean here in this position after queen b7?
Yes, after maybe even that, maybe,
and then.
Yes, because if you play like knight, bishop c4, no, maybe not bishop c4, queen b3. Maybe it's better to play knight h4 first, like I suggested, if you go back. Mm-hmm. I just want to show how dangerous it can be. If you give a check in this position with bishop, for example, here, yes. If you go king f8, it's knight g6, checkmate.
That's very nice, a cute little shot.
And if you go, for example, to, and then you have queen c2 in the next move, and that's very, very dangerous,
Yeah.
So I would say that black need to take, because black is very weak on the white squares. So.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like this. I had been wondering, could I do something like knight d2 and try and bring the knight to c4, but I think that's going to the wrong side of the board. I guess black will eventually just probably play bishop f8.
Yeah.
And I like your plan a lot better. Shall we quickly move on to board 2 and see what's happening there? But this one is going to be a very, very interesting game. So let's.
I think that Milton needs to find some good moves here, but to solve the problems. But yeah.
Oh, actually. Okay. Actually, wait. We might have missed something. Sean again is saying that maybe instead of knight b4, I'm not exactly. Maybe here, that some knight d4 is in the air. So.
Oh yeah, that's a nice move. Yeah, that's.
So maybe queen d7, b7 is simply not possible. Well, thank you, Sean.
But don't also in this, I think that black should try to go for some kind of sacrifice, because here you can take on d4. You can take with a rook on d4. I see. Okay, that's nice. I didn't see that. So knight take d4, then you take with a rook. I guess. Oh no, maybe no. Okay, no, it's not so clear.
Actually, anyway, black has played g4, not queen.
Bishop g4.
Queen b7.
Okay. So now on knight to b4, what is the idea? To take on f3?
And then rook e6 or what?
But then maybe, I think black is really hanging loose here,
Yeah.
Because rook e6, you can always play bishop to c4 if you like.
That's true. Yeah. But knight b4 is on the board, and I'm very curious to see. And also, Milton is down to only 16 minutes against 44 for Young Min.
Yeah, he's under heavy pressure here, for sure.
Yeah. And a win for Young Min would shake up the standings completely, because Young Min, so bishop f3 was played. Young Min is a full point behind Milton, but if he wins, he catches up, and that would also give Siem van Daal, we'll have a look at his game shortly, a chance to pull clear with a win, but we'll have a look at that in a second.
No doubt white is better in this position. I mean, there is no doubt about that.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll come back to this one. Let's have a look at this ending here between Isaac and Siem on board 2. I don't know, shall we go back maybe just a few, or maybe we can just look at this position on the board?
Yeah. Okay, so always when you have these type of positions, what you do is you look at the pawn structure, you look at the activity, and you ask yourself what pieces do you want to swap off. In this position, as it is rooks and knights, ending, normally it is judged as a pawn ending. If it's rooks, it's always a draw. So in this position, who has got the better structure for the time being? Seems like white is a little bit more active. It's hanging on b6, e5, so I guess that it is black who is fighting for a draw in this position. At least that is what it feels like. And the problem,
So what happens, for example, if black now plays a move like b5?
Yes. I guess what you can do is you can always take on e5 and then give a check.
I guess I have to go
if you go, I don't think you should go up to h6. I think f6 is only one. So the question is, what is this position like? Okay, maybe it is okay for black, this position. To give a check on d7, then probably you just move your king towards the b pawn,
Yeah.
and your king
And
is active. And now it's black who's getting active
Yeah.
at the position.
So if black can pick up this pawn, let's say the H pawn gets traded for the B pawn, then black is the one.
Yes, that's right. So white has to take care. So if we go back after B, you said B5. The other possibility is, of course, to play knight to A5 in this position.
And block off that rook.
But then it might not be. Yeah, okay. It looks now. I think that black is okay, because now my idea is maybe white could always play like knight to C6, swap off, and then play the rook to C5, get to B pawn, and it will be most likely a draw.
Yeah.
So this is why I said that one important thing is to understand what will happen if you swap different pieces, because then you might, if you're getting worse in one type of position, then maybe you should start to look for a swap of knights, for example. Then you have good chances to make a draw with the rook and a rook ending. And one problem for white is that the king is not really into the game yet. The knight on d4 is strong.
One of the things I always wonder when I look at this, I wonder who of the two players is even, playing for a draw, because sometimes it's quite clear that one side thinks, okay, I'm on the defending foot, but I feel like, and maybe I'm completely wrong, but that it is a position where both sides can have hopes, because like one mistake from either side might be costly. So I don't know, which side would you pick in this position?
Somehow it feels like white has got the margin, so I think that white must be able to make a draw in this position if white wants. So I guess would be a little bit better, but easier to play white. But still, I think it is a draw. So
very interesting. Black has just played E4.
Yes, I saw that. That's interesting.
Also here, a big time advantage for black, by the way. 14 minutes for Isaac and 50 for Seam.
Yeah. Well.
So can I just ask you, what would you make of the swap of the A pawn for the B pawn? In whose favor?
Yeah, what black is doing now is probably to go for a mate, to put the knight on f3 and then go for a check with the rook, and it will be, if the king goes to e2, there is a mate on e1, and so on. So now it's getting quite dangerous for white, actually. The b pawn is far away from getting promoted, so it is black actually who has got the chances here, to pick up an extra pawn maybe on h2 and so on. So I guess you need to avoid that. So with the rook, the move I am interested in here is maybe to go for rook d8 first, to get rid of the knight.
Okay, let's say I go either to c2 or b5.
Yeah.
Is there a difference? Probably there is a difference.
And if you move the knight to, for example, c2. White can always play rook b8, I guess, and I think this should be a draw.
You mean this rook ending?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, this should be a draw. So it seems to be a little, but if you make a mistake or if you pushed the position too hard for white, then black might take over. So you need to, you need to realize that probably this advantage or the look-alike advantage is gone, and to realize that it's time to secure.
Yeah.
This, at least that is my feeling right now.
Okay, so let's come back to this one. Let's see how Daniel Johnson, when I looked at this before we went live, and he seemed to be holding his own. I think we got here from a double rook and queen ending. This was around the time before we went live. I looked at this here, and now a bunch of pieces came off, and we landed. But he lost a pawn here in this.
Now this seems to be winning for black, I think.
So was e5 just a mistake, or?
Well, f3 seems to be the normal move, isn't it?
Yeah.
But even this type of position will be difficult for white. I think if you take on a4 and play the rook down to a2, and then you start to this is because when it's 4 against 3 is a draw, but 5 against 4, then we are on the on the verge of what you can handle with a defense, and not the least now when you have been cut off with your king. So at least black will have good chances to win, I think, this position.
Yeah. So in the game after e5 takes, we landed in this endgame here. So with an extra pawn for black, but white has this a pawn that he is sort of relying on. But
yes,
you think it will be difficult to hold this one for white?
It will be difficult, but of course you have at least some play. But if the white rook would have been on if we swap places on the rooks, then it would be a chance for white to hold it. Now it should not be able to hold. What black needs to do is just to secure that that when you start to push your pawns in the center, that it's that you do not lose thread, but that you step by step move upwards with your pawn. So yeah.
And also the defense is going to be made all the more difficult by the time situation. Daniel Johnson under 7 minutes against almost an hour for Felix Blobecker.
Yes.
Okay.
And now, for example, king f4, then king f6 almost mated the king, so you have to watch out.
Yeah. With some h5, e5.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, so let's take a quick look at boards, a very quick look at boards 4 and 5, and then we will come back to the top board. So, what just happened?
What is this? What is this position?
So white somehow gave a pawn up to get here.
Mm-hmm.
And now, what?
I mean, at least king d8, it's mate with knight e6. So that is not to recommend.
Nice. So there's only two moves, king d7 and king f8.
Yes.
It looks so scary to step into d7, but clearly he's thinking about it.
Of course, yes, of course. But you can yes, because it could also be the winning move, because if you play, for example, knight db5 check, then the king goes to c6. Then you give a check, maybe a check on c1 is strong here.
Wait, maybe. Don't. There's a bishop.
Ah, sorry, I didn't see that.
I also didn't see that first, but that bishop is doing a great job actually to cover
that's great. So now it's now you're in big trouble.
Yeah.
So it could be. So I'm sure that Hampus is thinking about that.
Yeah. Okay, we'll come back and see what he's decided on a bit later. Quick look at board 5, Axel Falkewall against Jakob Kusa.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that, at first sight, looks like it's just 2 pawns for black.
Yes. Where whom to play? Is it black to play?
It is black to play. Queen f3 was the last
one. Okay. Threatening maybe knight to d6, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Seems to be a threat, at least,
Yeah.
And
okay, that's at least something, because when we first looked into the position, I couldn't see a threat, but if you have this threat, you have hope, I guess. Maybe it's not.
Yes. But it should be. I think that it feels like if black just plays some good moves here, it should be okay.
Yeah.
But it's not. What is the time like?
15 minutes for white and half an hour for black.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's good for black.
Yeah.
So, how to continue? How to make it safe? So the normal move, that you start to look at is rook ad8, I guess. Just trying to swap off. And now I thought about, is it possible to play knight d6? But I guess not. I mean, you might even be able to take on d7 in this position.
Oh.
Okay, take on f7 and then king h7.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe. No, is it possible to play? No, bishop f4, you just take it. Okay, well, as far as I can see, this seems to be okay. So the maybe rook 81 is a good move.
Yeah. Okay, we'll come back to this one, but we think that black is in great shape if he can find some precise moves. So let's go back to the top clash. We left it off here on move 28 after bishop b5.
Yeah.
Sorry, here after bishop g4, bishop b4, and all of this was played that we have looked at. So he didn't go for bishop c4. Instead, he took the exchange here.
Okay, immediately. Okay.
And now we have this position on the board.
Yes, and it should be simply winning for white, I think. If you just, take care. b4, b5, and so on. Of course, you have to watch out for checks, but...
Yeah, can I try and somehow... My very cave woman idea is just to do something like this.
Of course. Now, queen d5, I thought about in this position. To cover up, but also to take away the rook from defending. And now you might even threaten to play rook take d4. If you play, for example, rook a6 to try to keep the rook, something like that. But it's, then it will be a checkmate on e8 in the end. So it's dangerous.
Yeah, queen h3 doesn't seem to work at all in this position.
But there's no doubt, of course, he wants to get, to try to make something. So maybe something like bishop h6 to try to go to f4, come with the queen, and so on. Maybe something like that, maybe. But b5 is fast.
Yeah.
What is the time like? It is
37 minutes for white against 12 for black.
Jung Min normally has got a good control of the clock when he plays his games.
Yeah, so I guess he wants to play b4, but he's just making sure there was nothing.
But you can also say that if white, if just white puts his queen for, play b4, puts his queen on g4, it's on king on f1. It's hard to see how black could, get real compensation in this position. So.
Yeah, I mean the queen is so well placed to always come back into defense if needed.
Yes, I think so. Of course, f5, rook g6 might be, you have to watch out for that plan like you said earlier on. But right now, the question is what move to play.
Sorry, what am I talking? Yeah.
But the question is what move to play in the actual position. Because what do we have on the board? We have b4.
King f8, and white is thinking.
Okay, so b4, f5, and b5, rook g6. Is that the only chance then? And now try to do something. But it seems it's not easy to find. Is it something like e4 or something like that? To try to get some kind of.
Can I even maybe throw in some c6?
Exactly, I thought about that. That is the problem, I think. You start with c6 and it's hard to see anything here. Okay, no, it's not working.
Let's come back to this one because I'm reading a question in the chat by Ray Dancing Rockstar. Is Seam starting to outplay Isaac on board 2? Question mark. So shall we quickly go back So we left it here after g3 and e4.
Mm-hmm.
And now Isaac played h4, which was met by b5.
Mm-hmm.
So a very similar position to what we looked at, except with the inclusion of h4.
Like I said, what I was worried about was that, yeah, exactly, to get this mating attack that I was speaking about.
Yeah.
And now it's dangerous. I don't know if you had seen this.
So basically, white cannot take on b5 because it's mate. Yeah.
No, it's not mate. King g2 is the only move.
So this is mate. Sorry. And
This is mate, yeah, but king g2.
And then you have to run to h3.
Yes, and now the question is, can you find a checkmate here somewhere?
So at the very least, black has a draw if he wants
Yes.
it.
Yeah.
But does he have more? By the way, just to let our viewers know, I've just updated the results that on board 6 there was a win for Khan Kukukshari against Yasim and Nemetz.
That's nice. Okay, so let's go back because it might be that you should prepare something. So this was the position, yeah.
This is the position on the board, and under 10 minutes for Isaac against 45 for C.
Okay, so you give a check, king g2.
Sorry.
Okay. How should you proceed? This is interesting because sometimes what you try to do is to either bring in the king, or you try to go for h6 and g5 and this type of for example h6 g5 and then you give a check and you play g4 checkmate in the end.
Okay, so let's just show that. Let's say if white does nothing, just to demonstrate the idea, and you make another nothing move.
Yes.
So
exactly.
This is the idea.
So probably in this position, what black needs to do is to bring in one more piece in the play, and if he can do that, he probably will have a good chance to win. And it's hard for white because the knight and the rook is so badly placed right now.
I mean, it's suddenly such a tough spot from an opening where at first sight it looked like, white was the one who was maybe slightly better and always had a draw in hand. It's also very uncomfortable psychologically to suddenly it's your opponent who has the draw in hand.
Exactly.
And suddenly you're looking at facing a mating attack with your king stuck on the king side.
Yes, and this is exactly what I said. So what you need to do with white is to understand that, oh my God, it's starting to become problematic.
But I'm so confused. He just played king e2. Is that not just losing a tempo?
Did he play that in this position instead, or what?
After knight f3, he played king e2.
Okay, because he wants to go to e3 with the king. I see.
He wants to go to e3.
That is the point. That was maybe wise. But again, if I think that if black now plays, this is and if you play check on d3 now, do you dare to go to f4?
I don't know.
Maybe you do, because also the king can be strong, if it comes up, for example, knight d4 or something, and the king goes up into e5, then it might be justified.
But I would like to make very damn sure I don't get mated.
I mean, h6 and g5 is close, and so on. So, I would be a little bit worried at least. No, but that's. If you go back, probably what black should play. You can also play like rook d3 immediately in this position, because one problematic thing is that white cannot take on b5 because knight d4 will be a check. So rook d3 looks good, I think. Also because now knight d4 is also a strong move if white tries to do something else.
I see that in the lead chess chat, International Master Menier Manje a good friend of mine from the Netherlands and good friend of Siem Vandal is saying "Davai, davai," winning now. So I know he's been following the broadcasts all along. Of course,
yes.
And
because also now, if because Black can also play more positionally, with knight d4 and then play for e3 and to win the g3 pawn in the end. So
actually, this is now all on the board. So rook d2, king e3, and rook d3 has been played, and now Isak will have to answer your question. Does he dare?
But here is the only move. He must play king f4 because if he plays king e2, then you take on a3, and you still cannot take on d4 because of knight to d4 check.
And here is a move we hadn't considered. Black played knight h2.
And then you play king e5. That is, don't you? And if you give a check on g4, for example, then you play king e6. And the question is, what about knight to take f2? Is there any chances for white to do something before the e pawn will get into? My idea was, of course, to give a check on, but king h6 probably is okay, yeah. And it seems to, so probably not a check. Then bring in the knight, and then you come with e3. Yeah, this is and knight.
I mean, even after this, I can even just
but
push.
Here, yes, I thought about. Okay, I had one idea here is to give a check on b7 and play g4, but it's probably not working at all. No, it's not working.
Because of?
No, you simply take it, I think. Yeah. Yes, unfortunately, I tried to create something, but it was not creative enough. So,
actually, if Siem can win this game, and if Young Min converts on board, if Young Min wins on board one, then Siem will be the sole leader going into the last round.
Yeah,
so that's a huge game for him.
Yes, he's quite young. He's 16 or
yeah. Let me confirm, but something like that. Siem is born in 2004. Yeah, he's 16 years old.
Right. That's good. Okay, so in this position, it is white to play, and maybe you should play knight c6 in this position. Then is that a better tryout? I don't know if that makes.
Can I somehow do this and try and get you in a mating net?
Yes, of course you can. But I thought maybe, what about knight to e5?
Can I? I was wondering, what is this?
But this now I think it's a draw.
It's just a draw, yeah. If you.
Well, at least you have good chances to make a draw hit. You just take and play king f4, and then you will take on b5.
I just missed. I thought I was gonna pick up this pawn.
Yes, yeah, that's right. So okay, so no. So I think if you go back, I think you need to find a better move in this. After here, I think you should try to find a better move. But at least this seems to be like a better version of what we just looked at. And check on f3, king e5, knight to g4, king e6. Now at least suddenly it's not, and then if you take on.
But maybe I can just start taking everything.
Yes, yeah. I mean, maybe it's even possible to play it like this, but it's at least now it seems like white has got some kind of play.
Yeah.
But maybe it's not good enough.
Yeah, I mean, if I can take both your pawns, and then the king looks like it will be safe.
Yes.
So he played king e5 actually.
Okay. Then I think it's game over after knight g4 check. I cannot see that there are.
Yeah, knight
that you
g4
have
is on the
and a
board.
counter-attack that is strong enough.
King e6, all of this has been played. Okay,
The problem is the knight on a5. You know, it's not.
Yeah.
It should have been on e5 or be joining in. Then it would be something else.
Yeah, and
Now,
this pawn is now looking.
yes, that looks dangerous for sure. No, I think White will win this game.
Black will win this game.
Sorry, Black will win this game. Yeah.
Let's quickly look at the endgame on board 3 between Daniel Johnson and Felix Bloberger. Not too much has happened here. Black is following the normal plan of sort of bringing the king and starting pushing his central pawns.
Yes.
So I think we can leave this one for now, but it looks like the top seed Felix will convert from here. Let's go back to board 1 actually. Which is becoming even more crucial now that Seam is doing so well on board 2. So he started with King f1, and after f5 he went b4 and e4. And this is now.
So okay, so let's go and let's grab the pawn just to see what's happening. Because now it feels like Black is now desperately trying to do something. Maybe it's the last chance.
I guess you give a check, or what else?
Probably, well, probably yes. And now, is it a check on h5? King d2, bishop h6, king c2. No, this is not. No, he must play smarter than that. Try to cover up the king's march to the queen's. This seems to be good enough for White.
So maybe here we need something else.
Maybe if you go back after e4, f take e4, can you do king rook h6 in that position? Just try to.
Maybe can I
just
try to do something like this and keep your queen out for now?
Of course.
At least?
Yeah, that's probably. But I just thought that this might be something. Maybe queen to c6 in this position. Something like that. But still, the pawn is hanging on d4.
Yeah,
I cannot really believe in this. I cannot believe in this, really. So
it's not enough. Doesn't seem to be enough attacking power.
No, I cannot see that. Okay, so it has to take back. So it has after f take e4, probably has to take back. And now the question is if you can take the pawn. Where is this counterattack that Black is looking for?
White has captured on e4, meanwhile.
So this is the actual position, huh?
This is the position after the first capture.
Aha, this is the position, I see. Yeah.
And 8 minutes for Milton. And he has taken. And rook e4 immediately.
You must take. There is no choice. I think we're gonna have our tournament standings shaken up completely after this round. Yes, it seems like it. I cannot really see that there is any attack that are close for Black.
Yeah.
Black was desperately trying to bring in the pieces towards the white king, but the problem is that the white squares are so safely. If there was no f pawn, then it would be something. But now with the f pawn there, you can put your king on, like move it to c2, put the pawn on f3, and then it's hard to see that there could be any real attack here.
I'm really curious if Seam gets right this afternoon. What's he gonna go for his last white game?
Yes, that's right. That's interesting.
Shall we quickly go back to board 2, Isaac Sturmer against Seam van Daal, and see what happened. So after king e6, he took on f2, knight c6, e3, rook b7, king h6, knight e7, and king h5.
Yes, this was almost exactly the line that we had.
Yeah. The knight is going to c6, so there's no more stopping the pawn, so...
Yeah, well, his idea, of course, but you can, now you can calculate. Let's say e2, take on h7, check on e5, take on g3, take on d3, take on d3, and it's not possible to stop the pawn, so...
Yeah, it looks like this one's gonna be over, I guess, very shortly.
And if you play knight to e5 in this position, last trick.
Maybe h6?
Yes, I know that. This is the problem.
So just to show our viewers, if you get a bit hasty with wanting to convert,
yes, that's right.
h7 is the trick that we set up with knight e5. But yeah, so h6. Can we set up one last trick with somehow getting the knight to f6? But
yes, but it's even a check. It's a check with a when you go down with a pawn,
Oh, so, yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So it's not much of a trick, actually.
No, that's true. So he played knight c6. Black went h6, and so he went h6 before e2.
Okay.
But shouldn't change so much, I guess.
No. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so Seam looks on his way. Let's see if Milton... So Milton, after rook takes, has played king h3, king e2. And the king is just, as you mentioned, gonna... Okay, so rook f6.
Okay, that's at least this is something, yeah.
Okay, so my first question is, what if I...
You have
I should probably...
Queen f3 is coming,
yeah.
so...
Yeah, just realized that I was gonna say, what if I just defend? But yeah, queen f3 is a big threat.
So, and queen d... okay, well, at least this is something, Queen d3, then queen h5.
And now at least you cannot run over the...
Exactly. And then king d2 to take on f2 check. Maybe white is still winning, but now at least you have some play. So go back. So here we have I think this is probably the last critical part of the game.
Yeah.
Now if can you even take with a queen on d4?
So okay, if black takes on f2, you're just saying this is winning.
No. You take with the queen and give it check.
Ah.
This is the point,
Ah. Yes.
That is good.
Yes.
It's actually,
Mm-hmm.
So this is the question. Can you play that move? And if you give a check on, then you play king d2.
He has taken on d4, by the way.
With the queen.
Yeah.
So that's what I said. I had a feeling that this might be the last crucial position of this game, because if just white can consolidate, it's game over, and this looks a bit dangerous. But if you calculate good enough, it's might just be simply we win.
I'm very impressed with how quickly he went for... I mean, he has probably looked at this first, but he went for queen d4 in under a minute or a minute.
Yeah, Jung Min, he can calculate very well. Already, in the very beginning, he was very fast.
Yeah.
He was younger as well. When he hasn't played so long, Jung Min. So
really?
No, he's been very, very devoted to chess. like his father said, I met him many times. I've had him in my training sessions many times, and like his father says, that he's thinking about chess 90% of his life.
Incredible, yeah. How old is Young Min?
His awake time. That's it.
How old is Young Min?
Let me think. I think does it turn 18 now? I think that's my guess. You can check it up, but yeah. I should know this, so it's a bit embarrassing. But
he is born in 2002, so he's either 18 or turning 18.
Exactly. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So it will be interesting to see if he can, always with these people that are, suddenly they get devoted into something, to see if they can continue to develop. Or if they reach like a level that they cannot move from. Mm-hmm. And Young Min, he's so strong player in many sense. Yeah. I think that's why I get a bit worried when I saw that he has played a lot of draws and so on. It's because sometimes this disease of making a lot of draws will make you not develop, and this is the danger. You should just keep on playing.
But then again, in these open tournaments, and we are seeing it again now, I mean, Milton has had such a fantastic tournament so far, and Young Min had somewhat slow start. But you get a win in round 8 and suddenly you are up there. Actually, do you know if, Queen F3 is on board. Do you know if Young Min, no, you probably don't. Maybe someone in the chat knows. Have Young Min and Siem already played each other?
Sorry, if Young Min and
Siem van Daal, if they have already played each other.
This actually, I don't think so, but I don't know.
Yeah, I also don't think so, but maybe they haven't played apparently. So that will be a huge. It looks like that will be a
great clash.
Yes, yeah. So. But of course, Milton also absolutely. He will be only half a point behind Siem, so this is assuming White wins this game and Siem wins on board 2. Let's quickly go back to board 2 to see if that one has concluded, because it looked very close to being over. So Isak against Siem here after h6, knight e5, e2, g4 and king h4.
Yes.
And that is going to be that. I guess Isak might even resign here, only 10 seconds on the clock. Yes. And that's game over, so congratulations to Siem. That's a huge win with the black pieces here in round 8. And I don't know, to start from this ending and then the way he somehow, it somehow happened quite quickly.
Yeah, but that's why I said that the danger in this position is that White believes that he is so much better, and that you do not realize in time that it's time to play for a draw. Yeah. So and the problem with this position is the White king, that it is a bit stuck down, and that actually these center pawns that Black has got can advance and be a danger. Yeah. So you should not underestimate the black position here. Even though normally you feel that White should be a bit better because of the extra pawn on the queen side, but always watch out for a checkmate or for an attack in the center.
Absolutely. So let's see board 1. After queen f3, king d2 and king g8 was played.
Okay. He's fighting on.
And queen d5.
Oh yeah, that's a good move.
And the queens are gonna come off, yeah?
Yes. In the next move there will be a check with the rook, and then you swap queens, and it's game over.
Yeah, looks like this is gonna be over. I'm not sure if we are going to have any interviews this round, because as nice as it would be to hear from Siem or Young Min, they have a huge game coming up in just under 3 hours. So I understand that the players have better things. I mean, so important to get, a little prep, a little rest, a little food.
Of course.
So here, this one is nearing the end. Let's quickly go back to board 3, Johnson against Bloberger. That was over.
Is it decided?
Yeah, it is decided. So let's quickly play through the end of the game. Here we also had those huge central pawns for black. And it looks like that was just not enough for white. Here with those pawns deciding the game. So also Felix Bloberger. Let me quickly update the standings and the
Of
results.
course. Yes.
Because Felix, so the round hasn't been updated yet, but basically Felix will now be on 6.
So like Milton.
Milton and like Jung-min.
Yeah.
So basically, Siem will be the sole leader on 6.5, and then 3 players behind him. And actually, also Khan won his game.
But Khan is already calculated.
He's already calculated. Yeah. You're correct. So 3 players chasing Siem: Felix Bloberger, Jung-min Seo, and Milton Pansar. And I guess that Siem will play against Jung-min, although I don't think he has faced Felix Bloberger either, so actually it could be the colors seem to match Jung-min, but Siem will be playing either.
But didn't they play?
They did play. That's true. He beat
Felix. Wasn't that the strange when it was exchanged down? At
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, that was that crazy game.
So it will be then. So then it will be Jung-min against Dial and Siem, and it will. Have they played Milton and Felix?
I don't think so.
Then we have 2 lovely games waiting this afternoon.
Absolutely. So let's and this one, board 1 is game over as well after Queen D5, Milton resigns. So congratulations to Jung-min, congratulations to Siem, who is the new tournament leader. And those will be some huge games this afternoon. Let's just quickly see, we're going to do a quick roundup of some of the remaining games, but we will call it a day very, very shortly. For all you people watching this afternoon, the broadcast will start from the start at 4 p.m. with Niels Grandelius, so we have 2 huge games to look forward to. Jesper, maybe you can give me a quick fire assessment for some of the games that are remaining. So first off, board 4. Well, actually there's no assessment to give. White has just resigned.
Yes, black is winning. Yes. Could you just go back to this position where we had knight to c7? Did he play king d7 or not?
Let me see. He played king d7. Yes.
Oh, that's great. He's a tough guy.
Remember, actually, Jesper, before I let you go, you still have to give away the game of the round prize. So maybe this could be this might be a candidate. Let's see how the game concluded from here. So knight e5, bishop e2, e6, knight b6. I guess all of the top. I mean, Jung-min must be a candidate for you. Siem must be a candidate. Hampus is a candidate.
Yes, but I think it's the only thing I want to know is that you have this for every round. Is that correct?
Not every round, no.
Okay. So what who has got the prize before? Who has won the prize before? That could also be interesting for me to know before I make my judgment.
I know that Tiger a couple of days ago. Let me find the Tiger a couple of days ago gave the prize to Rasti.
Yeah.
And I know that Niels, which I'm not sure which round it was, but there was this crazy game. The problem is I remember the games, but not who played them. There was this crazy game where maybe someone in the chat, White Dancing Rockstar, help me out. White won, but Niels gave the prize to both players because it had been such a fantastically fighting game. Let me just find. That was round 4. So I'm unsure of who have been the...
No.
And Victoria, Ellen Nilsson is in the chat with us. Welcome, Ellen. Victoria had won the prize in round 1 for her win against Felix. But out of our candidates here, I don't.
For me, I think for me it's quite obvious that I think that this game, it was Hamper simply, he just took the pieces and so on, and then he won. So I think that for me it's Jung Min and Milton Palsa. It's the game of the day so far. So I think Jung Min should have the prize if I just go to what was the best game and most interesting game, because I think it was really interesting. So
yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. So today the prize is gonna go to Jung Min for his win over Milton. And let me update one more time the results to see what is actually still going on. So
yes, now we have.
So now we have again another very bloody round on the top 10 boards. Maybe we'll just have a quick look at board 8. How did Ellen? So Ellen drew her game against Victoria. We'll have a quick look at board 5, board 8 and board 10 just to see what's going on those. So let's start with board 5, Axel Falkeball against Jakob Kusser.
Yes, he's fighting, trying to be active, and actually has succeeded. I don't know if he played AD8, if that was possible, if you remember when we left the last time.
Yeah.
Queen F3, he played Rook AD8. Okay. Yeah. He actually played this move. That was good. And then came Rook to D5. Okay. So now if Queen take, Rook take, Knight F6, then okay, still Black is better, but then at least you have chances, Bishop take and so on. But at least now it might be possible to hold this position for White.
Yeah.
So instead he played King. Okay, so
Queen B8 was played,
and now Knight D6. Yeah, that's okay. Yes, exactly. What can you? Is it possible to take on D7 in this case? What is happening? Take on F7. King H. Okay.
But does White have a draw here?
That's lovely. That's great. Oh, that's a great draw as well,
Yeah.
Very nice. Very nice.
That's very cute.
Yes, that's good. Okay, good. So it's well fought by Axel. He's also been part of my training groups for some years now. He's very devoted to chess, so it's great to have him at the top of this tournament.
Absolutely.
So okay, take Queen to D5. It's Black has to take care because there are so much tactics that might happen, and also if White just gets one of the, for example, the A6 pawn, then probably White will make it. So it's not so easy for Black in this position to just win. We thought it would be quite easy at some point, but this is still some technique is required to win.
Yeah, this might be a long game ahead still. So we'll move on from now, but we're not so sure, I guess, about our assessment anymore. Yeah,
no, but there is no doubt that White. It's either that Black wins or White somehow makes a draw. But Queen C4 might be coming, and with that ease the pressure, then it might be difficult for White to create any more counterattacks. So anyway, okay. Yeah.
So let's move on to board 8, Annemarie Mutsch against Joachim Nilsson. And here, so let's just rewind a couple of moves. So White is up in exchange, and I guess there is not too much compensation here for Black.
And if you play, for example, Rook E2. You take on you take on F4, and then I thought about Bishop to take on F4, but I guess you can just take it with the Queen, and there is not much more than that.
When you defend H2.
Yeah, exactly. So that was maybe one of the last tricks to go for, but it's not working.
Yeah, so it looks like white should win this game here. And then finally, to conclude this round, a quick look at board 10, Adam Frank against Ludwig Carlsson.
Mm-hmm.
Here, okay, first of all, the time situation. White is under a minute against 23 minutes for black.
Yes. Yeah, now I think in this position, how is this? Is there any chances? Normally I would say that, with a black king but a bit up, black should be the one that is in charge. It is the one that has some hopes to try to win, but it can also be quite often a draw, everything is swapped off and somehow you make a draw with a pawn against a rook or something like that on your side. So, but like we saw in the game of the earlier game with Isak Storme, you have to take care. And the question is h5 and king g5 and run with a pawn. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's maybe you can. Yeah, I don't know if this is possible.
I think here all three results are still possible, actually.
Because then the rook c5. I think h5 might be strong, actually.
And then followed by, if I leave this knight, rook c.
Yes, to put pressure on that one, and then you have the f pawn is also difficult to defend. So
you would put your money on Ludwig Carlsson, especially with the big time edge and this dangerous h pawn.
Could also be, rook to c4 immediately, maybe.
Yeah.
And the question is, do you threaten to play king e5? Then knight f3 check, king take f5, then we can take with the rook on c4, so it's not possible, but...
Actually, black played g5.
Okay. Yes. And then take, and the knight will take, and you will have a little bit faster h-pawn. It's the same idea in a way.
Yeah.
So, but... swap off one pawn. Normally you don't want to do that because white probably will try to sacrifice the knight for the h pawn and then go for a swap on the queen side. It will be a draw, even though white will have an extra piece.
Yeah. So this one's still a lot to play for, but black, the one playing for a draw, playing for a win here. We think. Jesper, so that brings us to the end of a very, very interesting round. Congratulations once again to Young Min, not just on his win, but also on the game of the round prize. Jesper, I will let you go, but thank you so much for your time. It's been another very interesting session, and I hope that we will all see you again very soon. And have a nice day. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. See you again. Okay, so what a round that was. I'm going to quickly show you guys the results and the standings going into the last round one more time. Before I do, like the players, take a quick rest before this afternoon's round. Get some lunch in. And this afternoon we're going to have some huge games. So for those of you who might have joined us late, we had a big shaking up of the standings at the top as Milton Pansar lost his first game of the tournament to Jungmin 0, and Siem van Dahl won a huge game as black against Isak Storme. Then Felix Bloberger beat Daniel Johnson and Hambo Sørensen beat Vignesh Vatna, and that means that at the top, Siem is now the sole leader on 6.5, and he's followed by 3 players on 6, Milton Pansar, Felix Bloberger and Jungmin Seo. So one of these 4 players is going to be crowned the 7th Uppsala Young Champions winner this afternoon. I will be here at 4 p.m, so that is 2.5 hours 2.5 hours from now, today we will start the coverage from the start of the round, and I will be joined by Niels Grandelius, so don't miss that. Should be an excellent round. I think that the pairings are going to be Siem Van Dahl with the white pieces against Jung-Min Seo, and then Milton against Felix, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure about the colors there. Anyway, those are my very trustworthy predictions. For now, I will send you over to Mr. Jobava, and hopefully I will see you all this afternoon for the final round of the Uppsala Young Champions. Thank you very much for watching. Hopefully see you later today. Until then, bye bye.